Let's pray. Oh God, teach us to love you as your angels love you. And until then, may we love you the best we can. And daily learn more about you. And seek your will. And so discover your glory. And now that the time for preaching has come, may the words of an old story be somehow new to us, that hearing it and understanding it and accepting it into our hearts, it might live in us and through us for your glory. In Christ's name, amen. There are certain kinds of people of conviction. Not all people of conviction, but there are two particular types to pay attention to. And you can find it in religion and in politics, both people, both types have a real clear understanding of what they think is right and wrong. In the first category, I'm going to do what I think is right, and I'm going to trust you to do the same thing. And I'm going to leave you alone and trust that you will grant me the same liberty. And the other has a sense of right and wrong, and you're going to do what they say or you're going to have hell to pay. Two categories. Pay attention to it. It plays out over and over again. And another twist on some of the same reality. Tomorrow, you take it in your mind to take a box of donuts to work or to the golf club or someplace. You take a box of donuts because you want to be a good sport. And you get there early and you make coffee. Take it to the bank. Somebody will say, oh, they're just glazed. I like the cake. Someone will. Or somebody's under the weather and you think it'd be nice to take them, say, a fruit basket. Nice thing to do, isn't it? Somebody will say, oh, these are California oranges. I only eat Florida oranges. You can count on it. Somebody will have a hard time letting other people do their own thing in the way they're led to, or accepting something as it comes to them. It's hard. And sometimes we should pay attention to what's going on in there. For instance, in today's lesson, there's a lot in this story that's been said previously in other parts of Scripture and other parts of it that is left for us to figure out. But there's this to start with. Mary and Martha and Lazarus had known Jesus for a long time. They very well may have been childhood friends. Their folks knew each other. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived in Bethany, a suburb of Jerusalem, within a Sabbath day's walk from Jerusalem, so that if you traveled from some distance, say Nazareth, you might stay in a place like Bethany, because Jerusalem was awfully crowded for Passovers and Pentecost. And it might well have been the family tradition that Joseph and his family stayed with Lazarus' parents from the earliest days. They were buddies. They were friends. They knew each other well. They cared for each other. Once, Mary and Martha were playing host to Jesus when he was in Bethany, and they served him a meal, but Martha served the meal. Cooking was her love language. She was one of those who expressed her concern and her care, her compassion, her hospitality by cooking up good food. And that's good. Mary was different. She would rather sit at Jesus' feet and learn something from him And that's good, too. Martha felt overwhelmed. Martha felt like Mary was not doing her part. She went and tattled on her, complained, and Jesus said, leave her alone. Let her be. This is fine. Well, Jesus said it. What do? You let it alone. When he leaves, she might have had something to say to her sister. And much more recently, Lazarus had fallen ill. Very ill. Well, Jesus would want to know about this. They had to let Jesus know. And with all they'd heard about him, all they'd seen about him, maybe Jesus could come and could pray a powerful prayer and do something wonderful and reverse the course of Lazarus' illness. Inexplicably. He didn't come. And he didn't come. And then he didn't come. And Lazarus died. And Lazarus died and was put in a tomb, wrapped up like a mummy, in linen cloth, and put in a tomb. And Jesus hadn't come. Now, these two women, Martha and Mary, had counted on him. They had had a lifetime of knowing that he was supposed to be their friend and could be there when they needed him, and he was not there. When he finally showed up, if you'd only come sooner, this would not have happened. You could have stopped it. And what does Jesus do when he hears that Lazarus is dead? The shortest memory verse he ever had to learn in Sunday school. Jesus wept. He felt the loss. He felt the compassion. He was outraged by the reality of death. This is true. Nobody ever was offended by the reality of death more than Jesus of Nazareth and his Father in heaven. They were scandalized by death, the reality of death, the indignity of death, the injustice of death. They just couldn't have it. The whole of Jesus coming to earth was to fix that. To find a way that we who live and we who die can live eternally. That's why he came. But in this moment, with Lazarus, the one who had died, he couldn't stomach it. He couldn't take it. He did something about it. He called Lazarus forth from his tomb, and Lazarus comes out, wrapped in that gauze. Must have been a sight. Comes out in that gauze, and he is alive. Now, wouldn't you think, if you were at odds with Jesus of Nazareth, if you had been an opponent of his for whatever the reason, when you saw Lazarus come out of that tomb, that might have been a good time to change teams. That might have been a good time to decide there's something here that I cannot resist. Instead, it was this incident that had a compelling power over the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the priests and the scribes, and led these traditional arch enemies to work together to kill Jesus, to get him out of the way. News of a resurrection of someone as prominent as Lazarus of Bethany, we couldn't allow that. We have to stop that. Too bad. And now, Jesus has come to Jerusalem for the Passover. He is an outlaw. There are powerful people who have decided to get rid of him. They are ready to put a price on his head, 30 pieces of silver. The courage that it would take for him to go into Jerusalem is not to be sneezed at. His understanding of what is to happen and the necessity of what is to happen is to be taken seriously by us. But for Mary and Martha. He's back under happier circumstances. And they fix a meal for him. A 3-layer caramel cake kind of meal. A great one. And there, in the dining area, around the table, reclining. They didn't sit at tables and chairs. They reclined on cushions. There, sharing in the great moment. Pinch yourself, Lazarus. Up and about and taking nourishment and being engaged in life again. What a happy time for Mary and Martha both. Martha's response, of course, to go over the top with the menu and the cooking, and how much there was and all of that. Mary was different from Martha. Mary had a different response. Mary had in her possession a certain quantity of nard. In the 21st century Western world, that doesn't mean too much. Nard. But in their world, it was a very important possession. A sign of wealth and a sign of position and place. Nard was a ointment with perfume in it, and it was used as multi-purposes. It was used as perfume. Like, smell good. It was used in cooking. I find that interesting. And it was used to anoint the bodies of the recently deceased. It was oftentimes, a little vial or so, was part of a bride's trousseau. Something she brought from her home to her new home with her new husband. Part of a dowry, right? And a girl might save her shekels and drachma and denarii for years upon end, saving up money for different amounts of this stuff to keep in her hope chest. Mary had a pound of it. That's a lot. In their world, that would amount to $55,000. That's a lot in anybody's world. Jesus had been her friend for so long. He had spoken to her words of life. And then he had called forth her brother back to life when he had died. She did something that was probably impulsive. She grabbed that alabaster container of nard that she had out of her hope chest, and she went to where Jesus was, and she anointed him. In their world, a royal person might have anointed a fellow royal with a little bit of something like nard over their head. Thou anointest my head with oil. The 23rd Psalm. No, she dumps the whole pound of it onto his feet. That isn't something that a royal would do to a royal. That is something that a slave would do to someone. She is without any pride, real or false. She is without any hesitation. She has loved to give him, and the best way she can express it is with this alabaster container of nard. And you know, if a little bit is a good idea, all of it is a better idea. And she pours it over him, and she bathes his feet with this nard. The smell of it. I mean, it was made to be aromatic. The smell of it filled the house. A reminder to all of them of the gesture behind what she's doing. And then, did she forget a towel? I don't know. Did she forget a towel? Well, she wiped it away with her hair. In their world, a woman's head was covered. An adult woman's head was covered at all times Only a woman of the street, a woman of the town, would have her hair showing. She had no pride. She had nothing to hold her back. She wiped his feet with her hair. This is a textbook case of adoration and devotion. And we should be able to picture the whole household moved to tears, just choked up by the powerful love, the expression of love here. And the disciples very well may have felt much of that. But then Judas Iscariot speaks. This is an outrage. How dare this happen? How dare you let this happen? He doesn't say that to Jesus, but yeah, he does. How dare you let this happen? This should have been sold and the money given to the poor. Well, back up. It wasn't his. It was hers. It wasn't Jesus's. It was hers. He was not in a place to tell Mary what she should do with what was hers. It was a good time to mind your own business. And there's nothing to give great indication that Judas was all the time concerned about the poor. You know, when you don't like somebody, soon enough you don't like anything about them. And when you're fixing to do something that is shameful, well, not you, other people. When other people are fixing to do something shameful, have you noticed they hunt up rationalizations for it? Justifications for something that's unjustifiable. This could have been sold and the money given to the poor, Jesus. You're letting her do this terrible, awful thing. Who do you think you are? And Jesus says, you'll always have the poor with you. You'll have time to do charitable things. You'll have times when that's the right thing to do. And very often that is the right thing to do, but you won't always have me. And she has saved this, he says, for my funeral. And I'm guessing she was of the nature that, you know, let's don't send flowers to the funeral, let's give them to him while he's still around. But he's foretelling his crucifixion. Judas, well, let this be the last straw for him. In short order, he's going to go out and he's going to make common cause with Jesus' enemies. He who has been entrusted with their purse, who has been their treasurer, who seems to have a knack for keeping track of money, is going to sell his allegiance to Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. This story is recorded partly so that we can have insights into Judas Iscariot and the nature of evil. But if it's just a story about Judas Iscariot, we're just gossiping. It became part of the New Testament, and it becomes something for us to consider, because the same character flaws that Judas Iscariot had, we can have. The same inclinations, the same ability to rationalize and find reasons to do evil things, we can have. Whatever there was about Peter to make him admirable, about Paul to make him admirable, about Mary to make her admirable, the same things about Judas that might make us despise him. They're all part of the human condition, so they're part of us. In the next week, what are we going to do about it? How can this impress our prayer life? What does it say to us about loving recklessly and letting other people do the same, however they will? Let's pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for the gift of those who came before us, who taught us how to be disciples of Christ, for those who loved your Son without embarrassment and without counting the cost. Guide us in that direction. Let such as these be our inspiration. Or we can go the other way. You would rather we not, and we would rather we not. In Christ's name, amen.